name's Katie Brohan. I'm the Director of Research and Development at the RP Group. I'm joined by my colleague, Elaine, who is also kind of co-leading this Community College Survey Solutions service that the RP Group is offering. And then also today, we are thrilled to be joined by four additional panelists who you'll hear from in a bit, and we'll introduce them in a bit. But all of these folks have implemented one, if not more, of these surveys at their own colleges. And so they're going to be speaking today about how they have used that data at their colleges so you can get a true sense of what it looks like on the ground. But I did want to spend the first bit of today just walking through exactly what is the RP Group's Community College Survey Solutions service that we're now offering, answer some questions folks might have about it, and then really, I know the most exciting part here today is hearing from others. So I won't spend as much time on that as we did last year when we did a similar webinar. This really is about hearing from everyone. So, okay. We're going to enable captions for the webinar. All right, and then we're going to get us kicked off. Here we go. Okay. Hopefully everyone can see that. So I'm guessing the majority of you here on the call know who we are at the RP Group, but for those who might not, just in case there's even one, we are the Research and Planning Group for California Community Colleges. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that conducts research, evaluation, planning, professional development, and technical assistance, both designed and conducted by CCC practitioners. So we have an entire board made up of CCC employees, but really we are just hoping to support strong research, evaluation, planning, and professional development, all in service of a more just and equitable community college experience. So one of the ways in which we do this is through our Community College Survey Solutions service. And so far, we have been offering three different surveys, and we're going to get into those today. We have a campus climate survey for employees, a campus climate survey for students, and those two, as we'll get into, have a lot of parallels between them. And then we also offer the Community College Student Success Measures Survey, which was originally developed by the CCL, which is the Community College Equity Assessment Lab with Drs. Frank Harris and Marissa Vasquez. I think Dr. Harris is on with us today. So hi, Dr. Harris. So that is the third that we offer. So we're going to be talking about these three specifically today, although we'll also share where we might be looking towards in the future for additional surveys as well. And just to give you kind of a flavor of who has been participating in this adventure so far, these are just a few campuses that we've partnered with on one or more of the surveys. And like I mentioned, we have four colleges here today, colleges and districts here to share their experience. But we've had some really nice uptake in various colleges across the state and districts as a whole, administering the survey to, or at least one of the surveys, to drive actionable change at their college. And this does not even include all of them. Okay. So why we do this, I mean, you all signed up for this today, so hopefully you already know the value of measuring campus climate on your college campuses, both for students and employees. But just some fun statistics, but 60% of employees believe that colleagues have the greatest impact on their job satisfaction. Everyone on this call is an employee somewhere. We know that having a positive work experience is, of course, key to satisfaction. And so, it's of course a goal that you want to make your workplace as positive as it can be. And then on the student side, there's so often we get so hyper-focused on these metrics of persistence, of retention, of graduation, of certificate and completion rate. But at the heart of it all, a student who reports a more positive campus climate is more likely to be academically engaged, to persist in college, and to hit those metrics. And so at the heart of it is making sure these students feel that they belong and they're having a positive campus experience so that they can go on to achieve these other metrics that we often are measuring. So what are we offering? Through our campus climate surveys, any of those three that I already discussed, If you administer one of these surveys on your campus, you would get a unique survey link for your college or your district to distribute, although I can get into the nuances, but sometimes the RP group is the administrator, sometimes the college likes to be the administrator. We have a lot of flexibility there. We try to make this experience as easy for you as possible. So if a college decides they would like to be the ones administering the survey, we work with them to kind of spoon feed everything that they might need. So we give them templates of language they can use. They can choose to use it or not. They can adapt it. But we really want to make it as easy as possible for you to go through this administration experience. The other thing that is great about what we're offering is this opportunity to customize questions that are unique to your campus. And I'll get into that in a little bit and why we do this and how we do this. But just know that with these surveys that we offer, there is the option to customize to make these really ensure that any given survey that you administer is tailored to the unique institution that you work with. Also, one thing that is offered through this service is what we call real-time access to the survey results, so that the day that a survey launches, you get a link. Your institutional research office gets a link, and anytime you click that link, you can see high-level descriptives of all the questions in your survey in real time. So if a student, for example, in a student survey just took the survey 30 seconds ago, they are now included in your aggregate, and you can click on that at any point and get a sense of how things are looking at like that 10,000 foot view. It also is a great way to see how your response rates are looking. So you might determine, okay, you'd like to keep your survey open for a little bit longer, or you might want to do more outreach to, for example, part-time students because you're seeing that you don't have as high a response rate with your part-time students. So it's a great extra kind of feature to have. And then when a given survey closes, we present back to the college or the district a unitary data file with all the results so they can conduct any local analyses that they wish to conduct. We will get into the nuances of what the RP group can offer in terms of analyses, if that's something that your institutional research office doesn't have the bandwidth to do or would just like some additional support with. However, you will get that individual data file back so that if you want to conduct your own local analysis, if there's specific areas you really want to dig into, you have that opportunity. And then there's also statewide comparison data. We say where available. This is, as folks might know, this is a newer service that we're offering, but the more and more colleges that are participating, the larger our statewide sample grows. And we are able to offer you a sense of not just what does your campus data look like, but how does that compare to other colleges around the state or other colleges in regions similar to yours. Okay. So you might be saying, what are the surveys like? Now, anyone is more than welcome to email us and get a copy of the survey. We obviously ask that of any given survey, we ask that you don't distribute those. They are proprietary. But to give you kind of the high level snapshot, when I mentioned at the start that we have our employee campus climate survey and our student campus climate survey, the next couple of slides are going to be talking about those two surveys specifically, and then I'm going to talk about the CCSM survey. But for the student and employee climate surveys, the questions in the surveys fall under four overarching areas. So we have empowerment and agency, diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, safety and security, and that includes both physical safety and psychological safety, and trust and confidence. And so you can see some sample questions here. But what we try to do is for the student and employee surveys, where possible, to have parallel questions. There are, of course, areas where that doesn't fit the bill. But wherever possible, we like to have parallel questions so that when you do get your data back, you can say, for example, X% of employees are feeling a strong sense of belonging at the college compared to Y% of students. And you can see where there's alignment and where there might be misalignment. And then these are just some more sample questions. So, and a sample for empowerment and agency might be, this is for an employee. Reflecting on your experiences working at the college, please mark your agreement level with the following statements. And then it's a matrix. So one question is, I feel a sense of belonging at this college. And so they indicate their level of agreement. On the student side, if we're looking at diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, one question is, the student responds to this STEM with a level, with a like scale. In my classes, my instructors the opportunity to introduce myself and share about my family and culture. And so they indicate whether that's happening in the classroom. On the safety and security, I mentioned this is both physical and psychological. So there's questions like, I feel physically safe at my college. And then on the psychological safety, there's, I feel safe being my authentic self at my college. On the physical side, we do have a set of questions that ask about their sense of safety in various areas, like the parking lots at night and things like that. And then on the trust and confidence side, this one is specific to the employee survey. So we have a set of questions that say, reflecting on your experience with your, and then we have four different groups, constituency group, leaders, executive leadership, board of trustees. Then they rate their agreement with a number of statements about that group, such as the level of transparency, and their level of respect and things like that. And they answer a set of parallel questions for each of those each of these groups that you see here. Now, I did see that someone raised their hand. Alyssa, how do we want to handle a hand raise? Should we wait till the end or?
No, I think we can take questions as they come. So feel free to pop in your question in the chat.
All I can see, I just see a blip of hand raise and then I don't see that. So do you want to just cut me off if you want to answer the question live? Otherwise, you can answer it in the chat. Does that sound good? Okay.
I don't see a question yet, so we
Okay.
can.
Okay. So I will in a moment, I want to turn over to the CCSM survey, but I wanted to share, everyone is always wondering, okay, so like what do I get back, right? And so I mentioned that there is that the data dashboard that you get with the real-time results. But when all is said and done, of course, you get your data file, so you can do your own local analyses. But we also like to present a very high-level overview, so you can get a sense of where are the areas that your campus is strong and where might there be areas of opportunity. And so this is just a sample. This is fake data, just to give you a sense. And this is one survey, although there's a parallel report for the employee survey or the student survey. This one is the employee. And so what you can see here is, this is a relatively long survey. There's a number of questions, but they all roll up into various constructs. So for example, here, campus climate overall rating, employee belonging within the college as a whole, employee belonging within the individual's own department, whether they feel there's fair and equal treatment, physical safety, and so on. And so what we do is we aggregate across the questions that fall under that construct, and we give you an aggregate score. And then they're just color coded based on warrants attention, area of opportunity, an area of strength, to really give you a quick snapshot of your areas of strength and your areas of growth. Then, of course, within this report, you can drill down. So, for example, if you see, okay, we're not doing so great with respect to, this is fake data, but the leadership effectiveness of our board. Well, let's see where. Let's see within that, what are employees saying? Like, where are we falling short? And so the rest of this report that we provide will allow you to drill down. But what we love about this image that I'm showing here is it really is this overarching snapshot where you can have some good conversations about areas where you might want to focus on and areas where you might be seeing improvement as you hopefully implement these surveys, time after time. So. And then I mentioned earlier, you do have the ability to customize questions. It's completely optional. But for every survey, you can choose to customize up to 3 questions. We kind of cap it there so the survey doesn't get too long. If you really are feeling that you need to ask a few more, there is the opportunity to add a few more, although that's not included in the base price. But we do ask that you think hard about that just in the interest of survey length. But we do realize that every college is different. You might have a new initiative that you want to capture some data on. No one wants to survey their students and their employees too many times. So if they can add a few questions to this survey that allows them to answer questions they were going to have to use a whole different survey for, then of course, this is a great opportunity for that. Some folks have different reporting obligations, perhaps to another funder, another institution. And so if you would like to add those in, we work with you to add those in. Okay. And then definitely cannot forget about our Community College Success Measures survey that we offer in partnership with our folks at CCL, our friends at CCL. And so this is another assessment that is specific for students. This has been around for longer than the employee and student campus climate surveys, but this survey is to get a sense of students' sense of belonging, intrusive institutional support, help-seeking behavior, faculty and staff validation, and efficacy of equity-centered student services. This originally was developed more specifically for students of color and especially for men of color. And now it has brought in to be more expansive, but it really is to dig into the student experience, especially in the classroom, to help drive conversations about equity-minded change at the college. And so, sometimes folks ask, oh, well, should I do CCSM or should I do the student climate survey? And frankly, we advocate for both because you're getting different information from the two different surveys. And so you're just some, kind of a better sense of what's in the survey, but we look at a non-cognitive domain, an academic domain. So how are students interacting with faculty? Are they using different academic resources to support their learning? We look at in an environmental domain, are there factors outside of the physical campus that might impact students' ability to fully engage, and so on. And a benefit of this survey is because it has been administered for a while, it also rolls up into constructs that have sort of predefined cutoffs that have already been developed for where the organization indicates an area of growth versus an area of success and whatnot. So again, these surveys are different. They capture different things. These are some sample questions. And so things like level of agreement with my instructor makes me feel welcome to ask questions during class, or outside of class, my instructor makes me feel welcome to talk with them about academic matters. On the non-cognitive side here, do they agree that attending college will create a better life for them and their families? And so we also in this survey ask students to self-report on what we call student success outcomes, because then there can be some looking at correlations between former questions in the survey and those student success outcomes as well. Again, why choose all three? We're biased, but we think that the more data you have, the better to promote campus success. But on the campus climate side, it's kind of this understanding the overall health and inclusivity of the campus and all its constituents. CCSM deeply investigates the specific factors that influence the success and persistence of underserved student populations. And then again, all three, it's a powerful diagnostic and strategic tool for colleges who really are focused on improving student success by having a strong focus on positive campus climate. All right. Show me the money. Everyone wants to know how much do these cost. We have worked hard to make sure that this is equitable and as affordable as possible for colleges. Our pricing model is based on the size of the college, the FTES. We also realize that some folks are RP group members, the majority are, but not everyone is. But there is a discounted rate for being an RP group member. For folks who are not RP group members and who want to do these surveys, it's a great incentive to become an RP group member because there's significant cost savings that probably outweighs the cost of the RP group membership. Just saying. And then we also, like I mentioned, we would love folks to administer multiple surveys because we do think that they help in triangulating data to drive improvement. And so if a college elects to administer more than one survey, there is a 20% discount. Those surveys do not need to be administered at the same time. You might say, for example, I would like to survey my students in the spring and my employees in the fall, or perhaps I'd like to do the student campus climate survey in the spring and the CCSM in the fall. As long as the surveying takes place within a 12-month window, that is still included in the discount. So, and there's also, I don't know if it's on the next slide, for multi-college districts, there are also, oh, here we go. Multi-college districts, if an entire district decides that they would like to participate, there are definitely significant discounts for having multiple colleges sign on all at once. So. Okay, just a quick recap. What you get. If you participate, you get a unique survey link. You get invitations and reminder message templates, so you don't have to do any of the legwork in figuring out that language. That includes links to the survey, QR codes if you want to put posters up on campus or go through social media, post on Canvas. You get customized questions, real-time access to results, that data dashboard I was talking about. And then when the survey closes, you get the unitary data file and the statewide comparison data when it's available or where it's available. Oftentimes, we have colleges who say, this is great. However, we don't necessarily have the capacity, or we would like a third party to do some additional work once the data have been collected. So, like I mentioned, there is the ability to add on additional questions. However, when it comes time to analyzing the data, we can also discuss doing some custom reports. You might have specific data disaggregations you would like us to run for you and make custom data tables, so we can do that. Um, Right now, we're seeing a lot of colleges who have participated in these surveys previously are wanting to dig in deeper into areas of growth that they saw in the survey and doing that via focus groups, both with students and employees. We can do interviews as well, but focus groups really get you a lot of rich data. We can, of course, come to your college either in person or virtually to present the survey findings. We've gone to a number of colleges to present the findings, again, both in person and virtually, and to help facilitate discussions around the findings. So that is a potential service add-on. And then similarly, facilitated workshops focused on planning with the survey results is also an option. The one thing I realized is not on here is there is also the opportunity to have the survey in additional languages, should you so choose. And so that is another service add-on. We can work with you to administer the survey in, I mean, pretty much any language that you would want. All right, I'm going to pause. I have not been able to see the chat, so if there's questions that we want to address that haven't been addressed live before we turn it over.
No questions in the chat.
All right, great. Well, then this is more the fun part. So, like I mentioned before, a number of colleges have already started using these surveys on their campuses. And so we have invited four of them here today. I'm going to have everyone have the opportunity to introduce themselves. I'm going to turn off the screen share so we can see everyone's beautiful faces. But my hope here today is that we can just have a discussion. I want everyone to start off with just before they get into it, what survey or surveys they have administered, just so everyone knows, because everyone has administered different ones. But then want to really get into the meat of it about how was the data received by your college or district administration, and then we'll talk about what you did with the survey. So as you launched into this, did you get any pushback from college? Were there any concerns from your college? How were colleges feeling about just the act of administering this survey, whatever the survey might be? And then ultimately, what did you do with that survey data? So I'm going to do a stop share. And then I was going to go around and just call on people. Oops. Oh, no. 1 second. There we go. All right, so the stop share is off. Yes, good. All right. So why don't we just do a quick intro before anyone starts answering questions? But in that intro, if you could state your name, who you are, where you work, and which survey or surveys your campus has administered. And then we'll get into the meat of it all. But I'm just going to go who I see counterclockwise on my screen. So can we start with Jacinto?
Yeah, thanks, Katie. My name's Jacinto Salazar. I'm the IDEA director at Monterey Peninsula College. And we administered all three surveys, the campus climate survey for students, employees, and also the community college success measure survey.
Great, thank you. All right, I see Coco next on my screen.
Hi, Coco Donovan, institutional researcher at the City College of San Francisco. We took part in the 2023 pilot of the Campus Climate Survey.
Yeah. All right, and Elaine.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elaine, and I'm at Foothill College. I'm the Director of Research and Planning there. We participated and administered two of the surveys, so the Student and Employee Climate Survey as part of a district initiative, and I can let Mallory talk more about that. And we did that administration this past spring quarter. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you. I'm Mallory Newell. I am the Interim Executive Director for Institutional Research and Planning for the Foothill De Anza Community College District. And then we also participated in the pilot, the first administration, which was a really great experience, and then participated fully in the following year.
So thank you. So as you heard, both Coco and Mallory mentioned this pilot, and that is something I did not mention. So we went through a pretty rigorous piloting process for these surveys to make sure they're capturing what we wanted them to capture. So it was probably over a year in the development. We had a whole development team, then we administered and then went back and looked at, where are these surveys obviously we're always looking to streamline because people are always worried a survey is too long. So really trying to make sure that we were not over surveying in terms of using multiple questions to capture the same construct. So I would love to have Coco go first, if you don't mind me putting you on the spot, talking about how you all have used the survey. And I was thinking maybe you could talk a little bit about the Black Student Success Forums that have been happening and everything like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's actually a really great call because you were there and I was there. Yeah, so how have we used the survey? I should say that I joined the CCSF community in 2024, which is before the pilot administration. And so there were ways in which that survey data was used before I joined. But I do want to focus on the Black Student Success Forum because that's something that I help facilitate. So we used the results of the pilot survey to help introduce the event for the Black Student Success Forum. The Black Student Success Forum, the name kind of says what it was about, but essentially it was just a day in which classified staff, administrators, faculty, and students all gathered together to critically think about how we could support Black student success at CCSF. The way in which we use the 2023 pilot campus climate survey data was we presented students' overall feelings of sense of belonging on the campus, so broader ideas, and then we sort of focused in on students' perceptions of students' experiences with racism and racial tension at the college. And we paired that data then with our student equity plan metrics, which did have a focus on us needing to support Black students at CCSF. So that's one of the ways in which we used the results of our survey.
And I'm totally biased because I was there, but I will say CCSF really, they hosted a great event. There's going to be a follow-up event. But what I loved was that, Coco gave a data presentation to the entire audience, but then there was time dedicated for people to split out into their different roles. So there was a faculty group, there was counselors, there were people who were only able to attend online, but to really then split out and say, okay, what are we seeing in this data as it relates to the role that we have at the college and what can we do? And this was specifically focused on Black student success, but what can we do to facilitate Black student success now having seen this data? There was also data from another survey presented there as well. But what I really liked was that people spent the time to break out and think how does this affect me in my unique position and what can I do in my role moving forward to help, leverage this data to promote student success, which I thought was really cool. But again, I'm biased. All right, I was going to flip it over to Jacinto. I was hoping you could talk both about how you've used the surveys, but also about what on the employee side, what the sentiments were around administering the survey, because I do feel the experience that you all had at MPC is similar to what we've seen at other colleges. And so I was hoping you could share a little about that.
Yeah, so we were really excited as a college to engage in this opportunity to learn more from our students and from our employees about what is their experience like, right? What is going on, and thinking about the desire to provide opportunity for people to share their stories and their voices, and that came from folks, right? This had been kind of bubbling and simmering for a long time, and then balancing that with concerns about how is, privacy going to be safeguarded, anonymity and the data integrity. And so there was a lot of people who wanted to voice and wanted to be involved and participate and saw this as an exciting opportunity, but also like had a lot of questions, right, about how it worked. And so, thinking about that, we're not just collecting data, but that we're listening with intention, and that we wanted people to understand that, that the confidentiality and anonymity involved in the process from the beginning to the end, right, was something that was really crucial, right, and vital to not just like wanting to make sure that we had enough people participate and able to share their honest perspectives, but also, and then what we did with that data and that information, and just making sure that folks understood that, right, and that meant that we had to be transparent, from the beginning to end, talking about, hey, we're going to roll this out. This is kind of why we're doing it. This is what we hope to accomplish. And then really thinking about, and we're really pushed, even though we had already thought about it, to like, what are we going to do with this afterwards, right? Because a lot of some of the not the complacency, but the kind of like frustration or questions that were about, transparency and the confidentiality. The other side of that coin is like, well, then what are we going to do with this, right? I'm going to like put my voice out there, and is there anything actionable that's going to take place as a result of me investing my time and energy, right? Or, for managers, hey, I want to make sure that the people who work in my areas, right, that they are encouraged to take this time and energy to do it. But what are we going to do with this data? And so we worked through some of the results through participatory governance, through the idea advisory group that I lead. And so we picked some topics there that kind of stood out to the group, and we're going to engage in some focus groups to kind of look at some of these topics, to dig a little deeper, to figure out why maybe some of these things are standing out as concerns to large groups or specific groups of employees. And then we're going to do the same thing for students as well.
That's great. Thank you. Yeah, and I mentioned that we can follow up with focus groups, and now that more and more colleges have been administering the surveys and are really digging into their data. They're going that route, and we're having conversations around, okay, so where are you seeing, different groups of employees or students having different sentiments than the average, or even holistically, where are you seeing kind of areas for growth that you need to dig into? And we were just on a call earlier today with a college talking about doing focus groups and this idea of getting recommendations. I mean, you can get a lot of data from a survey. You can even get a lot of data from a focus group about where people are feeling strain and strife. But the most useful is, now what are we going to do about it? And so this idea of like, okay, if you have a recommendation for the college, what would you do? What would make your campus experience as a student or as an employee better, because it's important to hear where people are struggling, but it's also just as, if not more important, to hear like what concrete recommendations they would have from their vantage point, to see if that's something the college could ever consider. And sometimes those recommendations are very low effort to implement and can have a huge impact. So yeah, so we're really excited to dig in more at MPC with you all. All right, I will turn it over. I don't know, Elaine or Mallory, who wants to go first, but hoping you can just kind of talk about your experience with the survey. Actually, Mallory, do you want to talk a little bit first just about, your whole experience going through the survey process?
Yeah, sure. So when I was at De Anza College before I transitioned over to the district, we put together infographics, and we disaggregated the data. So we did one for students. So it's just a 2-pager highlighting the strengths and then opportunities, so the highs and lows from the survey. And it was in color, so it was like, flashy, so people could kind of like digest information pretty quickly, and then start conversations from there. And then we did them for each of the employee groups, so full-time, faculty, part-time, classified, and administrators. And then we also did like much longer Excel like printouts for each of the groups with each of the questions. And our president brought together all of the constituency groups on our campus. So our unions, our employee groups, and we had a half-day retreat, and we looked at the results and we discussed them. And then we were asked from each of our constituency areas, how can we engage with our constituency groups with the data? And then there was an ask to engage throughout the year with the results. And so I was brought in, particularly with our classified Senate, to give multiple presentations in kind of these feedback sessions to collect info on progress that can be made and strengths and so forth. And then that information was shared back with our executive team leaders. And then as I've transitioned to the district now, we're working on, I just gave a presentation to our Chancellor's Advisory Council on the results. And what we've done is we've overlaid them with the Forbes Employer of Choice model, which has 6 strategies to really be a people first organization. And so we've been able to link the survey to the employer of choice strategies. And then we're having discussions around how can we use these as early signals to really improve outcomes and efficiency for our employees, really focusing on the employee survey results. And then I'll be taking it to our board for a study session coming up. So really kind of hitting all levels with the results. Elaine?
Sure. I'm just going to add on a little bit to what Mallory's already shared, coming from the college level. I think what was valuable about this particular administration of the climate survey, our district has administered climate surveys before, but this one really, I think, had sort of the district leadership involved and had the framework from the district. Mallory already referenced sort of the employer of choice model coming from our chancellor, which sort of helped focus some of the conversation and get buy-in at the college level to participate in a coordinated sort of administration effort, along with sort of the communication after the analysis had been conducted. And we had not previously, as a district, worked in that framework or in that model. Each college kind of did its own thing. And so, like De Anza, we at Foothill also sort of followed through with our participatory governance structure in terms of communicating it. We also have sort of, I guess, a mirrored website through the Foothill lens, like De Anza, with some of the same similar branding, just again to remind people that this was sort of district level and something that the district is focused on and concerned about and has identified as a sort of an area of for a goal and a strategy and thinking about the strategies that would sort of be driven at the district level. We did also, if I could just add, in addition to what's been spoken already, we did also spend some time with student government in terms of going to their meetings, sharing their data with them, in addition to what they were seeing in some of the more formal shared governance spaces. We spent time also looking at the open-ended responses and really pulling out voices, especially for the students, where it would be matched with some of the sort of percentage rates in terms of their responses, and spent more time with students talking about that. We did have a student at one of the sessions say, "Hey, I wrote that." So I was like, "See, we do look at we do look at every single survey." I mean, going back to, I think, the discussion we had earlier about, if I fill this out, does it just go out into a black hole? I think as the year is moving on, we're hoping to sort of bring some of those conversations from student government back into shared governance. We have been periodically agendizing sort of just like, 15 minutes or so as a check-in to see how the different constituency groups are following up based on the survey results. And student government has sort of asked that we have some more conversations in terms of some of the things that came out in the open-ended responses. And so that would be sort of the next step. I know that this is also occurring on the classified Senate side. That's the other piece I think we haven't really talked about. And I know Mallory, again, with the district, sort of leadership side, will be further engaging with our classified senate at Foothill to think about what strategies and alignment. The other piece to keep in mind at Foothill is that we have intentionally in our educational sort of master plan have specifically identified as one of the sort of higher level goals related to employee sort of satisfaction, especially in the career space, as a sort of 5-year long-term goal. So that's sort of where we're trying to align everything and bring everything together, where it's not just, oh, you took the survey, we told you the results, and okay, we'll see you in 2 years. Although to be fair, I think district is saying we will need to continue to do follow-up. I would say one of the gaps where we did have some sticky points with when communicating out was all the areas where it had to do with like microaggressions and things of that nature, partly because the ends kind of got really small once we got into the disaggregation by employee groups. And so there were people, I think, um, not sure how significant that finding was. And so it's one of those things where we were trying to frame it as, hey, this is a point for discussion. We're not necessarily, 10 people might have responded to that particular question. The value here now becomes we need to establish sort of trend with the data, but to continue to have conversations because those questions are of importance to our district. So regardless of the data, right? Those conversations need to continue because it is aligned to the employer of choice perspective at the district and also with our sort of educational plan.
Thank you. I had a lot of thoughts running through my head as you were speaking, but just to speak to that specific one about the discrimination and the microaggressions and how, of course, folks are looking to disaggregate, and when it comes to employees, you can get into small sample sizes. We have oftentimes colleges saying, well, they ask that question. They say, well, then how does our number compare? Because it might be a high proportion of employees, for example, experiencing microaggressions. And my response to that is, okay, yes, we will get you your statewide data. But if you have 40% of employees of color experiencing microaggressions, do you act on that differently if you hear that statewide it is 60% or statewide it is 20%? I would hope not, because 40% is a problem, 30% is a problem, 10% is a problem. And so I think when I was hearing you speak, Elaine, about that small sample size, if you only have 10, female, African American and Black employees, and 6 of them are experiencing microaggressions, it doesn't matter if that's representative or not, or you might not get to know that, unfortunately, but those 6 had an important voice, and you got to do something about it, right? So that was something I was thinking about when you were speaking. The other thing that I was thinking about was just this idea of open-endeds, and I wanted to share it. So there are 2 open-endeds built into the survey. They're relatively broad. They come at the end. Everything's optional, but it's something to the effect of, what are 1 or 2 positive elements of campus climate? And this is on both the student and the employee survey. And then what are 1 or 2, recommendations for change or suggestions, areas of growth? When there's 2 things to note. One is every college for either of those surveys has the option to include those or to exclude them. They have to actively say they'd like to include them or exclude them. If they include them, and most do, it is important to note that when I mentioned the college or the district gets a data file back, a unitary data file, they actually get more than one because they get a unitary data file with all the closed-ended questions. Then they get a separate unitary data file with those 2 open-ended questions that are not remotely linked. There is no unique identifier. They're not in the same order. And even for those 2 questions, the thing you might change, the positive thing, they are not linked. We try our hardest to maximize anonymity here, right? Now, it is not perfect, but before those 2 questions are asked at the end, we do remind the individual, hey, what you say here will be shared back directly. Again, not linked, so we don't know, you are a faculty member who's been at the college for 15 years who works in XYZ. They don't know that. But if you say, my experience with my boss, Sally, was, after I'd been here for 12 years, that's on you. But we don't, the RP group, we do not redact anything. What you choose to do with that information is up to the college. So some folks say, you know what, I don't have the bandwidth to dig through that data in the way that Elaine's talking about, really digging into it. And they choose not to ask it because unfortunately, but fortunately, they recognize that they won't be able to do anything with it. And I think the most beneficial thing that a college or district can do is be honest about what they have the capacity to do because people are spending their time and their time is valuable. And so the more you can minimize the burden and maximize the outcome, I think is really, really important. So just wanted to flag that. And if a college wanted to add another open-ended as part of their customized, they could do that if they wanted to. Did anyone have anything else they thought of while others were speaking that they wanted to share? Yeah, Coco.
Yeah, I think one of the things that was really helpful for us, CCSF, was I think you were talking about, Katie, you were talking about the like proprietary nature of the survey content. And that was really useful for us. It's sort of how did we use the survey data? It's like, how did we allow ourselves to like focus on other work and not have to generate a survey? That was really helpful for us because we didn't have to think about like spending all that time to generate survey content. That was really helpful. I also think the survey content being a topic of conversation right now, it was really helpful for us to be able to point to a survey associated with a reputable organization with content cover it, giving like coverage to like comprehensive coverage to the student experience. That was really helpful because before the survey was administered, we could point to the fact that we were going to administer a survey that was giving this comprehensive coverage to student experience. And after the fact, we were able to point to the fact that we did administer the survey. And that just generally being helpful to the Office of Research and Planning, my perspective, because of all the other things that research offices are asked to do at the college. So that was one of the things that I thought of. It's not actually necessarily how we used it in like an active way. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you pointed that out. We at the RP group are not naive to the fact that there are other surveys out there in the world. I mean, sure, your campuses have administered them. But the impetus for developing these surveys in the first place, and this is where I'm talking about the employee and student campus climate surveys, was we were hearing from the community colleges that yes, there are climate surveys out there, but they were not capturing the nuance of what it means to be a community college student in that unique environment, especially a California community college student. And so we really wanted to ensure that that colleges had data that was going to be actionable for them and reflecting the unique experiences of the student population that they're serving. So again, there's other options out there, but we really do feel that this is well tailored to our population. So, Jacinto.
Yeah, I was just going to say to piggyback on that, when we decided to embark on conducting a campus climate survey, I collaborated with the Planning Research Institutional um, group on our campus, and we researched like 5 or 6 different groups. We looked at the all the information that they had to offer top to bottom. And really what we came away with is really kind of what you just stated, about how there's a lot of surveys out there. There's good surveys out there. And I think the way that it's really community college focused. I think the support and the understanding of the system was something that really came through when we met with all the people. And so, it was a really easy decision to go with RP Group because of everything that you just outlined. And I think, the commitment financially and time and effort that it takes everybody, you have to pick the right instrument, the right group to work with. And so, we're really happy that we chose the RP Group because the experience that we've had from beginning to even, I was going to say end, but we're not at the end really. We're almost just beginning in a lot of ways. Has really been like amazing. And, Katie and Alyssa are really super responsive and helpful and can answer questions and provide information and resources throughout the process. So they definitely make it a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. And I think that's something that I was really happy to learn along the way.
That's great to hear. Thank you. All right. Anything else folks wanted to share? Also, Alyssa, definitely feel free to jump in if I left anything out. But... Okay, I'm gonna put the screen back up for just a moment. Actually, give me one quick second because I got so excited when I saw Alyssa share Mallory's dashboard in the chat, which I love. but let me do. All right. Go. So, hopefully you learned a lot today. So I know someone asked in the chat, are the slides available? They are available online. Also online on our website is a FAQ document, which hopefully we answered a lot of the FAQs on this webinar today. But if there are others, you might actually find your answer there. But we would love to have just a conversation with anyone who's even thinking about it. There's zero commitment. We love talking research. We love talking surveys. So if you think your college might be interested in administering any of these surveys, either in the spring or in the fall, definitely feel free to reach out either via email, or there's this form that's in the QR code there. People are asking us every day, like, is it too late to do these in the spring? The answer is no. We have a relatively quick turnaround time. We're willing to work with you as fast as you're willing to work with us. The things that take a little time are when you want to customize questions, when you want to do additional languages. But again, we're still in February. There's still plenty of time. And so if spring is of interest to you, there's definitely still more than enough time for us to partner for any of these surveys. But again, we can also discuss any plans you might have for the fall. And yeah, anything else to add, Alyssa?
So the only thing, additional items that I would add is that in addition to these three topics or three surveys that we've shared, we are also planning to offer the college attendance survey that many of the institutions in the last 2 or 3 years have participated in based on a contract or partnership that we had with the state chancellor's office as a way to understand enrollment behavior and patterns across the state. And so starting in the fall, we are going to be offering that as part of the survey solutions work. And so if colleges are interested in continuing, gathering information about enrollment decisions from prospective as well as currently enrolled students, that is going to be made available. And then lastly, the impetus for the survey solution service itself was because we were hearing loud and clear from the field a need for there to be more systematic data collection of student voices, perspectives, and surveys that colleges, IR offices specifically, were being asked and tapped to gather and collect. And so, as part of this work, we would love to hear from you all in terms of what other and additional topics would be useful to get not only a year-to-year comparison for your institution, but a statewide pulse around. So we started naturally with campus climate because that was one of the loudest needs we heard, but we know that there are emerging needs that are taking up place across the state. So we would also sort of love to hear from you all what those additional topics might be so that we can also explore to see how we might be able to continue supporting you all with your data collection and survey collection efforts.
Great. All right. So reach out anytime. We are here, and we hope that we get an opportunity to work with some of you in the coming year.